Welcome to Sisters in Service podcast. Most of you know me as a strong advocate for women veterans in being recognized not only as veterans, but also as women who are changing the world through our passion of serving, even after service. This podcast is my passion by telling all the stories of military brats, military spouses, active duty, and veterans, not to forget the veteran service organizations that help us along our transition journey. I want to thank you in advance for listening. I hope that you will join me every week. A new podcast and episode comes out every Tuesday. So I hope that you will join and I hope that you enjoy. This podcast is brought to you by Small Space Pilates. Are you ready to get fit and fabulous from the comfort of your own home? Look no further than Small Space Pilates. With live online Pilates and strength training classes, a video library, and a no perfection allowed policy, you can achieve your fitness goals without ever leaving your house. Click on the link for your complimentary week and start your journey to feeling fabulous today. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode, our latest episode of Sisters in Service. You know me. I'm the freaking fabulous Kat Corchado. And my guest today is going to be talking about something that some of us may have experienced, and that's being a military brat. Maybe you were a military brat where your family, either mom, dad, or both, traveled and you got to stay in one place. Or you might have been the other kind of military brat like I was, where I went everywhere my family did. So we're going to dish a little bit about that. And today, I have the pleasure of diving into the world of storytelling with the incredibly talented Contessa Thornton. Contessa, right? Isn't that a great name? Yeah. She's not just an author, but a screenwriter with a knack for capturing the essence of life's complexities through her captivating narratives. And so she has a romantic comedy that's coming up. We're going to be talking about that. But first, I want to welcome Contessa Thornton. Contessa, welcome to Sisters in Service.
Thank you so much, Kat, for having me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Happy holidays, by the way.
Absolutely.
A lot of us are still on holiday, and going on holiday is great, but coming back, you're kind of like, what am I doing? Where am I going? What's my name? I kind of had a little bit of, do I remember how to do an interview? So, Contessa, tell us the years that you were actually a military brat.
Absolutely. So I was born in 1975. And so from 1975 to 1989, when my father retired, I was a military brat, very proud military brat.
Yes. And so you traveled with your dad, right? You went to different places with him, with your whole family?
Absolutely. So none of us are from the same place. You know, as a military brat, you don't have a place. So people say, where are you from? I don't know. Okay. I guess I could choose one, but I don't know.
I know.
Right? I was actually born in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. My oldest brother was born in Fort Hood, Texas, which we kind of claim Texas. And my little brother was born in Germany. So,
wow.
yeah.
So was my little brother. So I was born in England. My brother, Steve, is the weirdo. He was born in the States of Michigan. And my little brother was born in Germany.
I love it. I love it.
I don't know about you, but I felt as though, and this is as a child, that it was great. We got to go to different places. I never had any, what can I say? Not hateful feelings, but just like, we're moving again. I thought this is how people live. This is what you did. How did you feel about being a military brat?
I absolutely realized that I was different. I started to realize it, right? I thought that all people constantly moved. I thought that all people only spent this amount of time at this school, and then you constantly move here and recreate your life, right? I loved it when I was little, right? Because it always seemed like an adventure. Yes. But as I got older, I started to feel the effects of it, because then I realized I didn't actually belong anywhere. I didn't have a place where I belonged. But again, I did not realize that till I got older. As a kid, it was always an adventure.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with that. And I think that to go back to what you said before about always moving to different schools, I thought that's just what you did.
Hmm.
My mom would say, give me 20 minutes and I come back with a friend.
Yeah.
And so you had to learn how to, what's that word or phrase, get along.
Yes.
You had to know how to talk to people. But I think I was older than you when I realized that, you know, getting, being older. And I think I started to realize it when I walked in the door and my dad said, we're going to Germany. And I was 14. And I was
Hmm.
like, no, I don't
Hmm.
want to go to Germany. And my dad said, like, yeah, well, we're going. And we tried everything. I was in sports. And even my coach was like, look, we can I find her a place to stay. My aunt stepped in. My dad's like, nope, she's going to Germany. And so it can be a little, at the age of 14. I mean, and I'm still here to talk about it, you guys.
Yeah.
When I hear on the news about a kid that, a kid got in trouble and they're like, oh, well, he's been to 5 different schools. And I was like, yeah, well, so have I.
Uh, I mean, it's like no big deal. I would come home. I remember I would go to school and I would come home and the whole house would be packed up. Okay,
Yes.
because my family, we were not involved in those kind of conversations. I didn't have that kind of home, and everything would be packed up,
Mhm.
and then we would end up in another country, and it's
Yes.
snowing, and there's different people, and it's like, oh
Mhm.
my goodness. And then that very next day is school time. School was never broken
Yes.
in this process, right?
No,
No
it
matter what.
wasn't.
Remember?
Yeah.
Nothing
Yes.
was broken. There was no like
No.
transitioning. You got school
They're
tomorrow.
like, oh, yep, here's your new classmate. And you just folded right into what
You
everybody
fold
else was
right in.
doing. I think it's really important to talk about that when we were both as military brats, that as an adult, I look back on it thinking, I got to see things and do things that a lot of kids only got to read about in books or see in a movie.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think being in different cultures built up this tolerance for different foods, different people, different languages, just different. You're like, oh, okay, that's what they're doing. Okay, cool. It wasn't like, oh, I hate that and this. And, when people speak a different language, I don't assume they're talking about me. I'm just like, wow, they're speaking a second language. That's so cool. What did you think about that, Contessa?
At first I was a little fearful, and
Mhm.
then I learned to adjust to it, and it became, like you said, like the movies almost. There was a family, I'll never forget. I had gotten a little bit older and I started to get used to this living as a military brat, and possibly
Mhm.
the second time we went to Germany. And my father had met a German family, and they weren't military at all. They weren't even, attached to us, just the fact that they lived in a town next to us, and they invited all of the military people to their home. So we go to this home, Cat, and no one speaks English. No one. Okay. So it's all these kids. There were
Mhm.
animals, there's horses, there's food, there's drink, there's all these things. And these people are all speaking a different language, but you could tell they're welcoming us, right? They're
Yes. Yeah.
all of
It
the
was a
military,
friendly atmosphere.
very friendly. I had no
Mhm.
idea at this time I hadn't learned how to speak German. So I'm
Mhm.
just like, okay, but guess what? We couldn't speak their language. They couldn't speak our, but we did have love. And we spent the
And
entire
food.
day there. And food. I mean,
That's a universal language, right?
universal. There was food, there was barbecue, there was big
Mhm.
layouts of sweets and things. I mean, you lived in Germany, you know how they do it. And
Mhm.
I was like, this is bad. They had games, they had everything. And I'm like, wow. And I
Yeah.
realized I am special. I'm special. I
Mhm.
remember really feeling special. I think I was about 7 years old, and I was like, I'm special.
Yeah. I mean, who else gets to do that? I mean, some kids do, they get to travel over the world, but for what I call regular people, regular folks like us, that it wasn't like, oh, let's go live in Germany. It was like,
No,
yeah, we're going to Germany. But
no.
I think one of the things that um being in different countries, the one thing that I understood was that no matter how much you botched their language, they always appreciated the fact that you tried to speak their language. And
Absolutely.
to this day, I can still count to 10 in German. Don't ask me why that's in my head, but I can just be like, yep, I got it. And it's right.
I love it. I love it. And I can too. And I wear that badge of honor. I realized I was special. Like I
Mhm.
said, it kicked in probably around that time. I'm like, I'm really special. So I
Yeah.
realized, how do you even land in a country like this? And it was so beautiful.
Yes,
So beautiful,
I know.
and that's when I realized that being a military brat was special, and I loved it.
Mhm.
And the only thing that I did notice it was that we were a family with inside of families. We always lived on
Yes.
bases.
Yes.
So here we are on the base, and then we would leave the
Mhm.
base. Then I realized, oh, so there's a world outside of us too. So it
Mhm.
was just a big, beautiful. And maybe that's why I'm a writer, right? Because everything was just very colorful. The
Mhm.
language, the people, the different places, even in the United States, every
Yes.
neighborhood I ever lived in came with a
Mhm.
lot of different cultures.
But it was almost a culture in a culture. Like you are a military brat, and no matter if you went overseas or to another base, there was a military community and culture
Yes.
ready to embrace you. It didn't matter if, the person you're talking to, their dad was an officer and your dad was enlisted. It didn't matter. We're all in the same boat together. We all played together. We all did the same things together. They were like, oh, dad does this. We just went out and we were just being kids.
And we were just kids. We just
Mhm.
understood. Oh, hi, I'm Tessa. They call me Tessa.
Exactly.
And you're who?
Yeah.
And that's what I loved about it, the sense of family. Because being a military brat, I didn't have my family. I didn't know
Mhm.
my family, my biological
Mhm.
family, and
Yeah,
that's where the new family was created. And
absolutely.
I had aunts and I had uncles
Mhm.
and I had cousins, and I'm like, oh my gosh,
Oh,
I've got all
yeah.
this family, and everyone was different
Mhm.
races. Okay.
Yeah,
We
it
were we
just
were
didn't
family.
matter.
We were
You were
family.
military and you mattered. I had a best friend in Germany and we were so tight that I would just go over her house and walk in.
Yeah.
Like, oh, and her dad called me his other daughter. Oh,
Yes.
there's my other daughter.
Yes.
It was amazing. Contessa, let me ask you this question. Growing up in a military family comes with, unique set of experiences. How has this background shaped your perspective on storytelling, especially when it comes to themes of resilience and mental health awareness?
Absolutely. A topic I would like to, bring to the forefront is, as much as we are smiling and laughing and
Mhm.
enjoying the experiences of being military brats, it does come with a lot. These men and women struggle with a lot in their positions and their jobs, trying to take care of their families. I come from a place
Mhm.
where my father was the person that worked. My mother was the homemaker, right? She took
Yes,
care of the
mine
kids.
too.
That was her job, point blank. That was her job, and
Mhm.
he took care of everything. But it came with a lot of alcoholism, mental health issues. My father
Mhm.
served in the Vietnam War, and I didn't understand this growing up. I found out when I grew older, and seeing other families in
Mhm.
situations, mental health situation, alcoholisms, and other things, abusive situations. Sometimes it was a lot.
It was a
It was
lot,
a lot.
yes.
There's a lot of pressure put on these men and women. And not only are they serving the country for us, they are also trying to serve their families. Because
Mhm.
again, when I grew up, those soldiers, men or women, were the head of the households most of the time, taking care of large families. I'm a family of four.
Yes.
Well, four siblings, so
Mhm.
it wasn't easy.
I get that. I think one of the things that when you talked about pressure, there were pressure on us as dependents.
Mhm.
And if you were a military brat, you know what I'm about to say. Remember the ID card, the military ID card? Okay. How many times did you lose that card?
Woo!
And my brother and I would have to sit and listen to a 2-hour lecture from my father. I'm like,
Woo!
just shoot me now. I'd rather
Woo!
and so, if we got into trouble, guess who else got into trouble?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So my dad would lay down the law. He's like, you can get in trouble if you want to, but if I get in trouble, Guess who else is getting in trouble?
Lots of pressure.
I know.
Lots of pressure.
And I remember one time I had just gotten a brand new ID card after going through the whole 2-hour lecture. I had gone to Stuttgart for a track meet.
Mhm.
And I came home and guess what I couldn't find?
Mm.
My
Mm.
ID card. Now, I did not tell my father at the moment. I thought maybe I misplaced it, right? So, on the old ID cards, I don't know if they have it now, but on the old ID cards, it used to say, if found, place in any mailbox.
Mhm.
Okay. And it would get. So I went to go check mail, and guess what was in the mailbox? My ID card. I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus.
Because it was a lot, and so I'm glad you brought that up, but the responsibility that we learned as
Mhm.
young children, it really shaped a lot of my views of everything, right? Being that
Yes.
little and have to be responsible, and you knew you were responsible for that military ID card,
Yes.
remembering things, learning new languages and things like that. That's a lot of
Mhm.
pressure to put on any normal child, right?
Mhm.
I can remember I had really bad allergies, so I had to go to the military hospital to get my shots, and I was
Mhm.
expected to know his social security number. I'm little.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Like automatic.
And,
You're like,
and I
what's your
remember it.
sponsor social?
What's
How
your
many
sponsor
times were you
social?
asked that question?
I had to go sign in, to get those
Mhm.
shots. And those are things
Yes.
that we had to do,
Mhm.
scared or not. I was a very shy
Mhm.
child. And so what I used to do is I used to absorb a lot of things. I would absorb those times. I would look at things happening around me in the hospital,
Mhm.
watch people interact. I would watch the people interact in the
Mhm.
stores with us, right?
Mhm.
And I would watch people just just watch it. And I remember the vast
Mhm.
change of being on base and then
Mhm.
leaving base and how we
Yes.
were expected to behave. Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Oh, yes.
No, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. I don't even understand anything other than that. My kids, of course, I
Mhm.
call their name. They're like, yes. They're like,
What?
yes.
Huh?
We didn't even know though. Those were like bad words to us.
You could not say that. We'd be like, huh?
Huh?
Wait, what?
And the whole house would shut down. It would shut down. But I loved it. I loved it, Kat. I loved the fact it taught
Mhm.
me structure. It taught me
Mhm.
respect. It
Mhm.
taught me a lot. It taught me a lot.
It did. I think I want to ask you this question. So some some military brats don't go in the military for various reasons, and some do. What was your why for not going in? Or was it even an option, or did you even think it was an option for yourself?
The as odd as it is, my dad served. He went in when he was 17 years old, and he served
Mhm.
proudly. My older brother went in. He never made it a expectation for us to join the military, which was odd.
Mhm.
I'm happy to say that he really honed into who we were as a person.
Mhm.
And so for me, I was a reader, I was a writer, and I loved school. And so he made
Yes.
sure that he kept me with books. And if I had
Mhm.
downtime, I was to be reading or writing at all times. I can remember that from the time I was
Mhm.
little. And so he always honed into who you were. And that's what he did. My older sister, she
Mhm.
was a sports person. So that's what he did. As long as your grades are right, you can continue
Yep.
to play sports.
Yeah,
My younger
remember
brother,
that? That was a
remember?
thing.
It was a thing.
I mean,
It was
you would
not,
get benched in a heartbeat if you did not carry. I can't remember what the grade point average was, but they were like, "Nope, you're not playing
you're not
today.
playing.
You can
He
suit up, but you're not going to
He
play."
literally almost shut my sister down. She had gotten in trouble for her grades. And I remember she was playing
Mhm.
in Bremerhaven basketball. And I remember
Mhm.
her having the meltdown of all meltdowns. And I really didn't know what was going her grades, her grades.
Yeah.
But he always honed into who we were as people. I remember my older
Mhm.
brother at that time, he liked karate. He loved
Mhm.
Bruce Lee. And I
Mhm.
remember my father, I don't even know how I found it, but my father found him some nunchucks and his room
Oh
was
my
full
god.
of Bruce Lee stuff. And so I'm very, very honored that he did
Mhm.
not make us do that.
Yeah.
He really cultivated
Mhm.
us each as children and what
Mhm.
our gifts were and made. But
Mhm.
if that's your gift, you were expected to be good at
Well, I think it's interesting that my father never made me go in the military. But my father also thought that, I was just going to grow up, get married, have kids, rinse and repeat. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I had a different scenario in mind. And so when I joined the military, it's because I had to. And when I say had to, I was a single parent. And I said, you know what? I need to go in for 4 years. Mind you, I retired at 20. Okay. I was going to go in for just 4 years to figure it out. And, and when every time it was time to re-up, I had just gotten orders, or my son was getting ready to go into another like middle school from grade school. And I'm like, okay, not yet. I'll do another 4. And then, you know what I mean? And and then pretty soon it was just, I was like, wow, 20 years.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you talked about the Vietnam War, because I remember distinctly that I was watching this on TV, and my father had gone to Vietnam, and we as dependents and his family, we had to move off base. It's different now. You don't have to. It was mandatory. We could still utilize the base, but we weren't allowed to live on the base. And I remember my father coming back and watching on TV, these soldiers being spit on. And I remember looking at my dad going, why are they doing that? And my father was so, how can I say this? Not non-committal, but he was just like, oh yeah, well, some people don't agree with what's going on. And he left it there. And I was like, oh, okay. And as a child, you're like, oh, okay. He knows better than I do. But I remember thinking back then that it was somehow wrong. And I didn't know any of the politics. I didn't know anything about it, but it just felt wrong because of the fact that my father was wearing the uniform. So Contessa, let's talk about your screenplay. Now, you've written a screenplay that's set in the Vietnam era, correct?
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the story follows a man that joins the military. He's not drafted. He actually goes ahead and joins, but there is some people that are drafted, and it goes through this man that goes through the experience of the Vietnam War and what that looked like in live action. Right? It's not the average. There's movies out about Vietnam, but it touches home for me because I am a daughter of a Vietnam veteran, and I got to see it unfold before my eyes. Right? Now, I was born at that time, right? But I got to see the effects of it. There's men and women that served in that war. And you're right. They didn't come home decorated. They didn't come home welcomed. And actually, they all went quiet. When I started doing my research with different veterans for this screenplay, no, they didn't want to talk about it.
No.
A lot of the research that I did had to be done outside by reading and of documentaries, because our veterans don't want to talk about it. The reason I'm trying to talk about it is because this is a very important part of history. It's not taught in schools. And I don't want this memory of these soldiers to go away, right? Because those stories of what happened in that war, even though it's not being spoken of, affected people like me and my family and your family and many families. And so a lot of these veterans are passing away. And once they pass away, the story passes away. And I feel like, as an honor and an ode to my father and your father and any woman, man that had to serve in that story, it needs to be told and it needs to be brought. It does carry along the life of military families, military children, the way that we had to create family and the way we had to deal with those soldiers after they got back and what their lives looked like. And so it is very, very close to my heart. Those veterans are very, very close to my heart. The story behind it really does touch on the Agent Orange initiative that those soldiers had to go through. And so those things are very, very near and dear to me. And again, this story is going to go away if someone does not bring it back to the forefront. And I think with history, you always have to have people that continue to carry that torch. And for me, watching my father experience the things that he experienced with having served in that war proudly, I will say that proudly, it affected me in ways that I can't explain.
Absolutely. I think it's important to tell the story, which you are doing from the military child's perspective,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
know, and I don't think anyone's ever done that. And military is huge in my family. You know, my father was Air Force. I was Air Force. My husband was Air Force. My father-in-law was an Army Ranger. His uncle, my husband's uncle, was something like that. I mean, he was
Right.
in the Army too. So it's huge. And here's the here's the one thing that I started just really questioning is that none of them, including my father, and he was not combat, but he never, ever talks about it. He never said a word about it. My father-in-law never talks about Vietnam. My uncle never talked about Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
They never said it's like they zipped it up
Yes,
and just
ma'am.
and you're
Isn't
afraid to
that,
bring it up because you think it's like taboo,
isn't
you
that weird
know?
that we both explain it the same way? It feels
Yeah.
like this, right? Like there's really no
Yes.
way to say it. It's just like,
Yeah, they never, my dad would say sometimes, oh, he would talk maybe about something about the food at the chow hall or something, but he never talked about the job he did at there. He never talked about any aspect of it.
no.
And, I just, to this day, it really just baffles me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what to say about it. Maybe it was so horrific that it's just better to leave it alone. But if anyone is listening, if you have an answer to this question for me and Contessa,
Please, please,
please let us know, why
please.
is it they don't talk about it? And it doesn't matter what their job was. It was just, they don't say anything about it.
I mean,
And
literally.
yeah,
It's crazy because I've talked to Army, I've talked to
mhm,
Navy veterans. Like I've tried
mhm,
all type of, I thought maybe it's the branch, right? No, it's
yeah,
not the branch.
no,
It is
it's
that.
branch wide. I mean, well, no matter what branch you're in, nobody who served during Vietnam talks about it.
No, no. And again, history has to continue, right? The
Mhm,
stories have to continue. We have to understand. And I
mhm,
can remember growing up when I started understanding that my dad was a Vietnam vet because they used to always say it. And I'm like, what does that
mhm,
mean? I remember we didn't even really talk about it in school. And I'm like, so
mhm.
are we just going to? I'm like, in my head when I was younger, kid, I used to think, did it even happen? Because we don't talk
Yeah,
about school, you know?
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so I really started thinking, did it even
Mhm,
happen? But it did.
mhm.
It did.
Yeah, there were a lot of things that I went through that the kids in the military don't have to go through today. Like I think I told you, Contessa, that I'm a naturalized citizen because at 3 years old, I had to put my little hand up, and I think my mother was the one that had to say the words, and I somehow got through it. I don't know what I said to this day, but apparently it was good enough for me to to be, even though I was born to an American soldier,
Yes.
I was
Yes.
still considered not an American. And so when
Yes,
people say,
ma'am.
oh, these naturalized people, be careful when you say that, because you might be talking about people who actually served in the military. And
Yes.
when you say that and you didn't serve and I did, I'm going to come at you. I'm going
Yes.
to say, I'm sorry. What
Yes,
do you
ma'am.
mean by that? Because I'm very proud of the fact that I was a military brat. I'm very proud of the fact that I served and that I'm a veteran. So be careful when you talk about naturalized citizens because it is a real deal. I still have my naturalization papers, even though I don't need them anymore, but I keep it. But I think it's just important to remember because a lot of people forget about Vietnam. It's all about, Iraq and Iran and everything.
Yes,
And I
ma'am.
get that. I
Yes.
totally get it.
Yes.
But let's not forget anybody. Let's not leave anybody behind. And I just think it's important. So let me ask you this, Contessa. You work on books and screenplays, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So how do you approach writing for these different mediums? And do you have a preference for one over the other?
People. People. You know what? Growing up. as a military brat,
Mhm.
created this writer in me. I'm sure I was born like this, but it created
Mhm.
it because everything was an adventure. Everything was like a book. Everything was
Mhm.
like a movie. Going
Mhm.
to, like I told you, going to these countries, like things that I would have never seen if I was a military child, I would have only been able to see on movies or in books. I
Absolutely.
got
Yeah.
to see these vast lands, right? And
Yes.
that is what created this, right? That is what started
Mhm.
that, because I all I had time to do was daydream. You know,
Mhm.
you take a flight to Germany, that's all you got time to do is sit there and daydream and think of things, right?
Oh,
So
right.
all of
Yeah.
that, watching different cultures,
Mhm.
going to our friend's house, and it would be a totally different culture,
Mhm.
right? And them
Yeah.
presenting their food and speaking in different
Mhm.
language. And I'm a people watcher. And so I
Mhm.
would sit there and just watch people and watch interactions of people. And so that's
Mhm.
what built into who I am. So it's very easy for me to create a story. Plus, I
Mhm.
love strangers.
Yes, I
Love.
do too. My husband, bless his heart, I love him. Uh, he's more peoply now than he used to be, but I can walk in anywhere. So let me know, anyone, if you've had this scenario. You're standing in maybe the deli meat counter line, and the person in front of you says something, you say something, then we start laughing, and then you start talking, right? And I would leave, and my husband says, "Well, you didn't introduce me to your friend." And I go, "What friend?" He goes, "The woman at the counter." I said, "I don't know her. We just started talking." And he goes, "How do you do that?" Military brat, baby. Military
Military
brat.
brat. That, look, that is our badge of honor, because what we are going to do is we're definitely going to speak to the strangers. We're going to
Yes.
find a friend somewhere, okay,
For
whether it's at the grocery
somewhere. Yep.
store. I find the airports are the funnest places, because then you
Oh,
get to say,
yeah.
oh, where are you from? Oh my goodness,
Yes.
airports. Even I
Mhm.
travel abroad a lot, and even when I travel abroad, I'm
Mhm.
usually meeting somebody in the airport, and I've got to know where are you from and
Where
this,
you
that,
fr
and the
Yeah.
other. And
Yeah.
so it creates these people that we are today, right? um
Mhm.
Most people think, oh, you're so quiet. I'm pretty quiet, but let me meet a stranger. Let me
Oh,
meet a
yeah.
stranger, and I'm all in. I'm
Oh,
all in. I'm 10
absolutely.
toes down, because strangers are so
Mhm.
intriguing to me. And so
Mhm.
I find that the more that I'm like that, the more that I carry that piece of me, that military brat in me, that little girl that had to be thrown into a whole nother place and meet these new people.
Yeah.
It teaches me to continuously keep that going. And I find
Mhm.
stories in people. People write their own stories, actually, you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
um, just listen. And I encourage people, listen to people sometime, ask them some questions.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that when people talk to veterans, they're like, "I don't know what to say." And I'm like, "What would you say to a stranger?" If someone were, I'll take you for instance, Contessa, you're a writer, and we're in the airport, and I see you writing or whatever, and I'll say, "Wow." I might say, "Are you a writer?" And you're like, "Yeah." Oh, and I start asking these questions.
Yes. Yeah.
Why can't people ask those questions of veterans? Just be curious. And I think that being a military brat helped to set up, being what's the word, that veterans are just very, not sustainable. What's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word, where we go through anything and everything and we come out on the other side.
We're
Yeah, our hair is a little
resilient.
messed up.
We are very
Yes, resilient.
resilient.
Thank you, Contessa. That's
Yeah,
the word I was
we're
looking
resilient.
for.
And you know what
Yeah.
the thing is, what I love about it is, even though I did not serve, you literally take on that that soldier's energy. You take on their
Mhm.
strategic, you take on their
Mhm.
resilience, you take on their intelligence, you take all of those pieces, be
Take it
it was
in,
it your
yeah.
mother or your father,
Yes.
take it on, and they
Mhm.
integrate that into us, and we carry that with us. And
Absolutely.
I sing, I never served, but I tell people all the
Mhm.
time, one thing, I never served a day in the military, but one
Mhm.
thing that my father did give me was strategy. He gave me
Mhm.
intelligence. He gave me
Mhm.
resilience. I mean, he gave me all those things.
Yes.
Everything I look at from a military
Mhm.
standpoint.
Yeah. I think one of the things to this day, I grew up on military bases. I can go onto any base, it could be a Marine base, okay? And I'll be on that base like, yeah, these are my people.
Yes, yes,
I feel
yes.
so good on it. I'm like, yeah, the uniforms, it feels so familiar to me
You feel at
that
home.
I'm just like, okay, let's
You
do
feel at home.
this.
We're
I
all
feel at
friends.
home. Yes, I
I
feel
can
at
remember
home.
when I became an adult and I was out on my own. We had moved to a another city, and I remember I just had a hard time meeting people. People couldn't place me anywhere. I don't have an accent, so they
No,
couldn't
don't
really
have an
place
accent.
me,
Mhm.
and they're like, And I happened to meet some ex-military people, and if I
Mhm.
tell you, I felt. Even though I didn't know where I was, I didn't know anybody in this town, but the
Mhm.
fact that they were military,
You identified immediately, like you bonded almost
I
immediately.
bonded
Yeah,
immediately,
yeah,
and he became my brother. He was only
yeah,
about maybe 7 years older than me, but the
yeah.
fact that he was ex-military, he got
Mhm.
me. He understood me. He got me to talk.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah.
the cooking started again. The laughing started again. The way I grew up.
The
I grew up.
stories. Oh
The
my
story.
God, the stories. Where you been? Where'd you go? Where
Yes.
were you stationed? There's such a rich history. When I say history, I mean history of the military member.
Yes.
So when people say, I don't know what to say to a veteran,
Hmm.
seriously?
Oh, we.
Oh, how about, what branch are you in? Because, civilians, and yes, I still call them civilians.
Yes. 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 Yes.
They don't know that. Start there,
Just start there. We're so
absolutely.
open. We're so
Yeah.
open, like, and we want to be
Mhm.
open because that's what we're used to. We
Yes.
want to open up. We want to tell you the things, right? Uh,
Yeah.
but it comes with a sense of, I miss it. I really do miss it. I talk all the
Mhm.
time. Me and my cousins, my military cousins and aunts and uncles, I talk about it
Mhm.
all the time. I miss those times.
Yeah,
Miss those times. I do.
absolutely.
Those were the best times
Contessa,
of my life.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Those were the best times of my life. Military
Yeah,
life.
when you look back, yeah, we would just go to a base. It could be any country. And,
Yeah.
and let me tell you this story real quick. So we had moved to Germany and we couldn't move on base right away. And we lived in this little town called Weilerbach, Germany.
Mhm.
Okay. And we had rented this house that used to be a stable during World War II.
Oh,
Yes.
oh,
And so there was a little bridge that would go over to Luxembourg. Okay. And we would just cross over and we'd have a little bit of, coffee and we'd trot back. Well, my father found out and he gave us the what to and the wherefores. He's like, you can't just waltz it to another country without a passport. I'm like, we just went for coffee. We weren't doing
yeah.
anything. But that's how we felt. We felt like, oh, we're here in Germany. We were very, I don't want to say resilient, but we were adventurous. We're like, let's go
Yes,
here. Let's go
yes,
find this. And I'll leave you with this last story before we end. My
yes.
brother and I were playing outside and we found this thing and it sounded tinny, it sounded metal. And we're kicking it and we're doing all this stuff. And finally, we're digging around it and we go, oh crap, it was unexploded ordnance from World War II. And my
Cat,
my father, right?
cat.
And my father had to call the base and they had to come out and get it. And we're like, my father's like, you didn't touch it, did you? My brother like, no, we just, we noticed it. And we're like, holy crap.
That's those adventures. We're so adventurous. We're so adventurous. I love it.
So Contessa, where can people find you if they want to, I don't know, dish about the military, or maybe they want to, talk about their screenplay, or maybe you're looking for actors and actresses for your screenplay, not mentioning any names.
Absolutely. 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 They can come to my website at www.imagineme.com, and it's spelled a little bit different. So it's IMAJENME. And they can reach out to me there if they're interested in any of these stories or the movie or what's happening. It's all about timing and execution. Again,
Mhm.
that's what my father taught me, timing and execution.
Well, Contessa, I'd like to invite you back to Sisters in Service when we have a screenplay that's actually going to be on the screen. You could
Yes,
say,
ma'am.
oh, we could do a watch party. We could do, see, I'm already like planning anyway.
Yeah,
But
yeah. A absolutely. You're definitely a part of it already.
Contessa, thank you so much for being here and taking the time during this holiday weekend. And for anyone listening, if you're a military brat or you know of military brats, I would love for you to come on. It's the one part of the military that we don't get to chat about. You know, whether you were in the military, you decided not to go in the military, it doesn't matter. Let's just talk about being a military brat and how you felt about that. And we had such a great discussion today about being a military brat. It just brought back so many positive memories for me. And I'm sure it did for Contessa also. So as usual, you're going to hear me say, please stay safe, take care of each other. Until next time. And please remember, it's never too late to start your impossible.